I'm Dani Walker, welcome to my channel. Today's episode is what to expect at your first pageant. So many contestants talk to me about these things after they've experienced their first pageant. So I want to address them with all of you out here today who are preparing for your first competition. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning of my own pageant journey. That's me on my 14th birthday at my first pageant with no idea what I'm doing. Not everything will go as planned. That is something that took me years to figure out. No matter how many pageants I competed in, there was always something that was unexpected that happened during pageant weekend or pageant week. So it's really important that you are flexible, that you learn how to go with the flow. Things that your directors hand you, like schedules or your expectations for rehearsals on paper, may look amazing, but they could look a lot different in real life. Now, I will say this, you should not expect for things to be running extremely late for all competitions. A couple minutes behind, you might expect some technical difficulties during the show. That's pretty normal. But I've actually been a part of pageants and attended some that have ran 2 or more hours late, which I thought was absolutely insane. So you should not expect that for your first pageant. Honestly, that's a huge red flag to me about an organization if they're running that far behind time. And that's not an organization that I would ever recommend that anybody else competes in. Who'd have thought, right? It's not like an episode of Mean Girls. I will say this, at every pageant, I felt like there were always a couple girls that I really didn't vibe with, and that's okay. There's usually one or two that kind of don't get along with the majority, and that's pretty much to be expected. But most contestants at a pageant feel the same feelings that you feel. They feel those same nerves or feelings of excitement, and they just want to make friends too. So don't be afraid to make new friends. Say hello, introduce yourself. Be self-sufficient. It's going to be your responsibility to look after yourself. Now, obviously there's exceptions when we're talking about youth pageant systems where parent chaperones are allowed backstage or in a dressing room. That's different. But once we get into our teen, Miss, Mrs., Ms. age divisions, it's generally expected that you are going to care for yourself. Don't expect any pageant staff member to give you any priority treatment or to warm you up for your interview. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to be ready to go. That's part of what it means to be a title holder. Actually, there's another episode that I have, and it's all about qualities for being a queen, and I highly recommend that you check it out to make sure that you are working on building these character qualities in your life. Don't expect a queen's dressing room. Whoa, ladies, let me tell you, backstage at a pageant does not look how it does on TV at Miss Universe. It looks nothing like that. Even my dressing room at Miss USA did not look how it does on TV. That's for production. That's for TV. But most of the pageants that I went to, I was cramped backstage in a high school theater auditorium. I remember one time there was nowhere to put any of our stuff. There were no clothing racks. We had to provide our own. I've been in pageants where I've sat on the floor to get ready. I remember being in a high school theater and there were paint cans everywhere and props and costumes all around me. There was barely any room for contestants. I've been to other pageants where the backstage wasn't even in the same building as the actual pageant. I don't want you to expect the types of dressing rooms that you see at Miss USA or Miss America or any other televised pageant, because that is not the norm. At a lot of pageants, you don't have your own dressing station, you don't have your own clothing rack you'll be sharing. Sometimes you don't have your own chair, and most of the time you don't have your own mirror. So that's a really big tip. If you want to have your own mirror at a pageant, most contestants will actually bring their own large standing mirror, so they have that. But keep in mind, if you bring that, a lot of girls that weren't prepared usually try to use your mirror. So if you really care about that mirror, maybe label it and put your name on it. I always felt like I was so prepared. Well, I shouldn't say always, I'll take that back. I felt pretty prepared, or as prepared as I could be for every pageant. And I think that most contestants feel that way. But just know that no matter how prepared you are, you're gonna go into the pageant and you are going to learn something from that experience, because every single pageant is different. Every panel of judges is different, every group of contestants, every production. So just be prepared for that growth. And I say that because if you are not open to positive feedback or constructive criticism, you aren't going to even recognize that growth. And that's one of the best things that Pageants has to offer, is teaching contestants how to be more self-aware and helping us to grow as people and improve ourselves. So be ready for that growth and be open to it, because that is the attitude that a queen has. That's the mindset that you need to eventually capture that crown. There are going to be girls at the pageant who have done this a lot longer than you have. I know it sounds kind of silly, but that's something I wasn't even thinking about at my first pageant. I was thinking, oh, we're all new, because that's who I met. I met a bunch of new contestants at a pageant orientation, but I didn't even consider that there were girls who had won other titles or who had competed for several years. But regardless of that, do not let any of that intimidate you. There are contestants who win on their first try. There are contestants who win on their 10th try. So just stay focused on yourself and your personal goals. It's going to be a lot more expensive than you thought. Oh boy. That is why budgets are so important for pageants. Things always add up, so I have a couple other episodes about budgeting for pageants, where you can save, where you can splurge, but most importantly, how to get pageant sponsors. So check those ones out so you are prepared for the financial aspect of pursuing a title. Without a coach, you will not know what you're doing. I know that people say that coaching isn't necessary, but it is becoming more and more common because pageants are getting so much more competitive. I can't think of one Miss USA or one Miss Universe who doesn't have some sort of coaching team. It's really hard for me to think of any national winner of any pageant that hasn't had some sort of coaching. I think that contestants sometimes win at local or state levels on their own, but it's very, very rare to see any winner that has done it completely by herself. And the benefit obviously of having a coach is that you're gonna have a little bit of outside perspective, but really you are going to have the accumulated knowledge of a coach that you don't have, because if it's your first pageant, you got no clue what's going on. You have no previous experience, but a coach has that experience. That's why now I really advocate for that for contestants who are very serious about taking home a title, is to utilize coaching in some way, shape, or form. That's why it's so important to budget for coaching, because the majority of your winners are going to have some sort of coach. They're going to have not only their personal knowledge and skill set, but they're going to have all the knowledge of their coach that's giving that to them. So it's been really, really important in recent years to start looking for some outside help. But if you don't have a coach, don't expect to know what you're doing. You're kind of just shooting in the dark at that point, because if you're brand new to pageants, you usually don't know what's expected of you in an organization, and you really don't know a lot about the behind the scenes, like how things are scored, what judges are quote unquote looking for, what wardrobe works in your pageant system, what style of speech works in your pageant system. And that's where coaches really come in handy. It's hard work. Your feet are gonna be killing you. Your face is gonna hurt after the pageant because you've been smiling so much on stage. And that's something that I really didn't expect at a pageant. I didn't know how exhausting pageant weekend would be. So before you compete, make sure that you take care of your body, get your rest to be mentally and physically prepared. I never expected to learn how easy the queens on TV make pageants look. Oh my gosh, that was one of the biggest things that I ever learned at my first pageant, and so many contestants learn when they're going in that they're like, oh my gosh, preparation is so intense and it takes so much to actually go home as the winner. There's a quote that I love, and it's, "The man on the top of the mountain didn't fall there." And I think that's so true. If you want to win a title, you need to be very intentional with your preparation. It doesn't usually happen by accident, especially if you are competing for a very coveted title. those are just some of the things that you can expect to learn at your first pageant. I'm really excited though that you decided to check out this episode because it means that you're already on the right path. You are seeking knowledge outside of yourself from others who have been there and who have been successful at capturing a title or been successful in the pageant industry. So I am super excited for you and your path, and I would love to be a part of your journey. If you need more help preparing for your very first pageant, then be sure to click the description below, and there's a link to my free pageant prep course. It's packed with information to help you be your best self. So I hope that you enjoy it and that you learn from it so that you can make the most of your first pageant experience.